In October 2015, 31-year-old Amanda Antoni was found dead in her Calgary home under strange and unsettling circumstances. What looked like a brutal crime scene quickly spiraled into a baffling mystery with no clear answers. Featured on Unsolved Mysteries, her case remains unresolved. Before we dive in, if you're into unsolved mysteries and true crime, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more cases like this to light, and you won't want to miss the next deep dive. Let's get started. Amanda Antoni was born in Calgary, Alberta in 1984, and her story begins with a unique family background. At just 2 months old, Amanda was placed in foster care and taken in by a couple who already had 2 older sons. Her foster parents quickly fell in love with her, and by the time she was 14 months old, they officially adopted her. Amanda grew up in Carstairs, Alberta, a small town in central Alberta known for its close-knit community. She was the youngest in the family, with a 12 to 13-year age gap between her and her older brothers, which made her the baby of the household. Amanda's family described her as a bright, kind-hearted individual who had a natural ability to bring joy to those around her. Her big blue eyes and warm smile made her the center of attention wherever she went. Amanda had a special connection with animals, adopting nearly every stray she came across. Friends and family often described her as the kind of person who would do anything to help others, whether they were human or animal. She was also known for her playful nature and a good sense of humor, often pulling light-hearted pranks to make people laugh. At the age of 20, Amanda met Lee Antoni through a mutual friend. Their connection was instant, and they quickly became inseparable. The couple's relationship blossomed over the years, and in 2009 they married. Friends and family described them as a fun-loving couple who enjoyed spending time together. Amanda was seen as the more responsible of the two, while Lee had a wilder, more carefree personality. Despite some frustrations Amanda occasionally expressed about their differing personalities, especially when it came to Lee's struggles with job stability, their bond remained strong. Amanda ran a small but successful cleaning business called Simply Spotless. The business allowed her to be independent and gave her a sense of pride, though she sometimes felt the pressure of being the primary provider in the household. Despite these challenges, Amanda and Lee were rarely apart, spending most of their time together and sharing their lives with their beloved pets. In late October 2015, Amanda and Lee Antoni made plans to travel to Saskatchewan, where Lee's mother needed help settling the estate of Lee's late father, who had passed away the previous year. Initially, Amanda was set to join him on the trip, but in the days leading up to their departure, she began suffering from intense migraines. Amanda had dealt with severe migraines before, and when they struck, they could be debilitating. As the weekend approached, she decided it would be best for her to stay home in Calgary to rest, while Lee went ahead on his own. Lee left for Saskatchewan on Friday, October 23rd. Despite the physical distance, the two remained in constant contact. Lee called Amanda that evening when he arrived at his mother's house, and they spoke briefly. Amanda mentioned that her headache was still lingering and that she hadn't done much that day besides resting. Their communication continued primarily through text messages on Saturday, October 24th. Amanda's messages were calm, and she indicated that her headache seemed to be easing up. Everything seemed relatively normal. At around 7 p.m. on Saturday, the couple had a phone conversation during which Amanda told Lee that she was feeling a bit better and that the migraine was starting to fade. As they were talking, Lee heard Ruby, their Labrador, barking in the background. Amanda tried to calm Ruby down, telling her to settle, but the dog kept barking. Suddenly, Lee heard Ruby yelp, followed by the sound of static. Then the call abruptly cut off. Concerned, Lee tried calling Amanda back, but the call went straight to voicemail. He assumed that her phone had either died or that she had accidentally dropped it and broken it. Over the course of the evening, Lee sent a few more text messages to check on her, but none were answered. Thinking Amanda might have fallen asleep or was still dealing with the migraine, Lee decided to wait and try again in the morning. When he still hadn't heard from her by Sunday morning, Lee began to feel uneasy, but continued to focus on helping his mother and planned to surprise Amanda by returning home earlier than expected. Little did he know, this would be the last communication they would ever have. On Sunday, October 26, 2015, Lee Antoni returned home to Calgary, hoping to surprise Amanda by arriving earlier than planned. As he unlocked the front door, he was greeted by Ruby, their Labrador, who was visibly distressed. Ruby was anxiously pacing and seemed desperate to be let outside, which struck Lee as unusual given Amanda would have normally taken care of her. After letting Ruby out, Lee noticed that the house was eerily quiet. He called out to Amanda, expecting to find her resting upstairs, but there was no response. As he walked through the house, searching the common areas, he grew more concerned. The living room, kitchen, and bedroom were empty, and the unsettling silence hung heavy in the air. When he reached the basement stairs, something felt off. Amanda rarely went down to the basement because she thought it was creepy and avoided it whenever possible. Nonetheless, Lee felt compelled to check. As he descended the stairs, what he saw next would haunt him forever. Amanda was lying motionless on the basement floor, surrounded by an alarming amount of blood. Her back was facing the stairs, and she appeared to be in a semi-curled position. The sheer volume of blood was staggering, making it immediately clear that something was terribly wrong. In a state of shock and panic, Lee dialed 911. His frantic call captured the pure terror he felt in that moment. He struggled to explain the situation to the dispatcher, his voice shaking as he tried to process what he was seeing. He could barely get the words out, describing how he had come home to find his wife unresponsive, surrounded by blood. First responders arrived quickly and were met with a scene they would later describe as one of the most gruesome they had ever encountered. The amount of blood in the basement shocked even the most seasoned officers. Although Lee was beside himself with panic, the investigators' immediate focus was on the grim task of figuring out what had happened. The sheer brutality of the scene left them with more questions than answers as they worked to piece together the events that led to Amanda's death. When investigators arrived at the scene, the details in Amanda Antoni's home were disturbing and perplexing. Amanda's body was found in the basement, surrounded by a large pool of blood. This immediately raised alarms for first responders as the amount of blood indicated a violent event. As investigators began combing through the scene, they found several unsettling clues that pointed toward a potential struggle. Amanda's cell phone was discovered broken on the dining room floor. The screen was cracked, suggesting it had been dropped or thrown with significant force. Nearby, a kitchen chair had been overturned, adding to the appearance of a struggle or sudden disturbance. In the stairwell leading to the basement, investigators found a shattered piggy bank with fragments scattered down the stairs. Notably, some pieces were embedded in Amanda's head, raising the question of whether the piggy bank had been used as a weapon. The initial impression, given the blood loss and the chaotic state of the scene, was that Amanda had been the victim of a violent attack. Investigators quickly assumed that they were dealing with a possible murder. The volume of blood and the extent of Amanda's injuries, including significant bruising, made it easy to draw this conclusion. There was no immediate sign of forced entry, which left detectives wondering if Amanda had known her assailant or if they had gained access another way. Naturally, the first suspect in a case like this is often the spouse. Investigators focused their attention on Amanda's husband, Lee Antoni. As the person who discovered the body and the last known individual to speak to her, Lee's whereabouts and actions were closely scrutinized. However, as investigators began piecing together his alibi, they found no evidence to suggest his involvement. Surveillance footage from gas stations combined with phone records confirmed that Lee had been in Saskatchewan at the time of Amanda's death, hundreds of kilometers away from the crime scene. With his alibi firmly established, Lee was quickly cleared of suspicion. Investigators then had to consider other possibilities, whether Amanda had been attacked by someone else or if something more complex had unfolded in her home. As the investigation continued, the scene's strange details and the lack of clear evidence raised more questions than answers. The autopsy on Amanda Antoni provided crucial details about her death, but also deepened the mystery surrounding it. The primary cause of death was determined to be significant blood loss from a head injury. Amanda had sustained trauma to the right side of her face, resulting in a fractured orbital bone. Despite the severity of the blood loss, the medical examiner noted that there were no other major fractures, which ruled out the possibility of a more extensive, violent assault. Her injuries were primarily limited to bruising found on her knees, elbows, and hips, but nothing consistent with the kind of blunt force trauma one might expect from a fatal attack or a fall down a flight of stairs. The lack of other obvious traumatic injuries left investigators questioning what exactly had led to her death. Initially, the scene suggested a violent confrontation, but the autopsy didn't align with the type of brutal assault one might expect from the amount of blood found at the scene. As the investigation progressed, authorities ruled out other common causes of violent crime. There were no signs of forced entry into the home, which suggested that if someone else had been involved, Amanda might have let them in willingly. There were also no indications of a robbery. Nothing of value was missing from the house. Additionally, the autopsy revealed no evidence of sexual assault, another avenue investigators initially considered. Amanda's toxicology report revealed the presence of cannabis in her system. This wasn't unusual for her, as she often used cannabis to manage the severe migraines she frequently experienced. Given her history, the presence of cannabis did not raise immediate red flags for investigators, but it was noted in the official findings. Overall, the autopsy confirmed what had been visually apparent at the scene. Amanda had bled to death from her head injury, but how that injury occurred and whether it was the result of an accident or foul play remained unresolved. The medical findings only added to the growing list of questions surrounding her mysterious death. As investigators worked through the evidence in Amanda Antoni's case, several theories emerged about what could have led to her tragic death. The first and perhaps most thoroughly explored was the accidental fall theory. After reviewing the crime scene and analyzing the layout of the home, investigators enlisted the help of a biomechanical expert. The analysis suggested that Amanda may have accidentally tripped over their dog, Ruby, during the phone call with her husband. This could explain Ruby's sudden barking and yelping, as Amanda may have stumbled and fallen down the stairs. According to this theory, as Amanda fell, she struck the piggy bank on the ledge by the stairs, causing it to shatter. Fragments from the piggy bank were found embedded in her head, leading investigators to consider it a key factor in her fatal injury. Notably, the piggy bank had a layer of undisturbed dust, suggesting that it hadn't been picked up and used as a weapon, but rather had been accidentally hit during Amanda's fall. This theory fits with the fractured orbital bone found during the autopsy, which could have been caused by the impact with the piggy bank and the subsequent fall down the stairs. The significant amount of blood loss would then have occurred as Amanda attempted to move around the basement, disoriented and injured. However, the potential intruder theory couldn't be dismissed outright despite the lack of forced entry. Investigators explored the possibility that someone may have entered the house through the back door, which led to an alley behind the property. Lee couldn't recall if the door had been locked, leaving open the chance that someone had gained access through it. Several details raised suspicions of an intruder. Neighbors reported hearing Ruby barking unusually aggressively on the night of the incident. One neighbor also mentioned seeing someone running through their yard around the same time Amanda was last heard from. Castle Ridge, the neighborhood where Amanda and Lee lived, was known for a higher rate of crime compared to other areas in Calgary. The police had been called to their home before due to break-ins and trespassing in the yard. All of this led to the consideration that Amanda may have encountered an intruder, resulting in the chaotic scene and her fatal injury. Despite these suspicions, there were no clear signs of a robbery or struggle in the main areas of the house. Nothing of value was missing, and investigators found no forensic evidence such as foreign DNA or fingerprints to suggest a stranger had been in the home. Finally, other possible leads were considered, including one involving Lee's sister. Lee informed investigators that his sister had a history of conflict with Amanda, primarily over family issues. There had been tensions between them, and Amanda had reportedly felt threatened by Lee's sister in the past. However, after questioning her and reviewing her whereabouts, investigators found no evidence linking her to the crime. The threats, while troubling, didn't lead anywhere concrete, and no proof emerged that she had been involved. Each theory had its own complexities, and while the accidental fall seemed plausible, the unexplained factors such as the barking dog and the sighting of someone running through the yard kept investigators from ruling out other possibilities. These competing theories left the case unresolved, with no clear answers about how Amanda ended up fatally injured in her own home. In 2020, Amanda Antoni's case was featured on Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries, bringing renewed public attention to the mystery surrounding her death. The episode shed light on the perplexing details of the case, prompting viewers around the world to speculate on what might have happened to Amanda. The increased visibility reignited interest in the case, with the hope that it might lead to new information or tips that could help solve it. Throughout the years, the Calgary police have maintained regular contact with Amanda's family, acknowledging their continued concerns and doubts about the circumstances of her death. While investigators have conducted extensive interviews, gathered evidence, and consulted with experts, many questions remain unanswered. Despite the official ruling, Amanda's family has been left with a lingering sense that something more might have occurred, fueling their desire for further investigation and transparency. The official stance from authorities is that Amanda's death was likely the result of an accident. The biomechanical analysis, the evidence from the scene, and the lack of any concrete signs of foul play led investigators to conclude that Amanda may have suffered a fatal fall. However, despite this ruling, doubts persist, both from Amanda's family and the public. The unresolved details, such as the barking dog, the broken phone, and the unsettling amount of blood, have left many questioning whether there might be more to the story than an accidental fall. As the case remains open, the police continue to treat any new leads seriously. They've encouraged anyone with information to come forward, and the feature on Unsolved Mysteries provided a platform for reaching a larger audience. For now, though, the case remains unsolved, and Amanda's family is left hoping that one day they will get the answers they've been searching for. Amanda Antoni's case remains one of many unsettling mysteries that continue to elude resolution. What started as a seemingly straightforward tragedy has turned into a complex web of theories and unanswered questions. From the possibility of an accidental fall to suspicions of an intruder, every angle has been explored, yet the truth remains out of reach. Despite a ruling of accidental death, doubts persist, and Amanda's family continues to seek answers. As with many true crime cases, it's important to approach this with empathy and respect. Amanda was a daughter, a wife, and a loved one, and her family is still grappling with the unknown. When discussing or speculating about cases like this, please keep in mind the real people behind the story. If you or someone you know has any information that could help solve Amanda's case, even the smallest detail could be crucial. Tips can be submitted to Calgary law enforcement by calling 403-266-1234 or anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Lastly, if you found this video informative, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing more cases like Amanda's to light. Stay engaged, leave your thoughts in the comments, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Thank you for watching, and we hope that one day Amanda's family will get the closure they deserve.